In this video, I interviewed two DoorDash product managers at their home office in San Francisco, California, and I asked them things that were concerning you and I as DoorDash Dashers. What about new features, things you're looking at? How do you determine when that's going to expand into a different marketplace? Well, what about customer tips? Because we've seen competitors guarantee a reduced or zeroed out customer tip. The company would pay the difference. What about wait times? What actually happens when I tap that button that says like there's a wait time, tell us what's happening? And probably the top like 3 concern right now, the on-time rate. What are you doing to revise on-time rate? Because there's a lot of objections. It's not accurate because you're using the ETAs on the original offer.
My name's Kyle. I work on the product team here at DoorDash. I support a number of teams that are responsible for the Dasher experience. So excited to have a very important Dasher here.
Yeah, appreciate that. I really hand-selected this for things that you're thinking about. You know, problems, questions. Obviously, we can't cover everything in this video, so look for future videos here. But I wanted to ask Kyle this first question here. So we've seen DoorDash respond to Dasher feedback when refining features, for example, modifying pro shopper protections, original item found, or revamping the rewards program to place less emphasis on deliveries per month and acceptance rate. Would DoorDash ever consider updating the on-time rate threshold, which currently relies on the initial ETA? You know how you get that offer on the offer card there? Currently relies on the initial ETA as shown on the offer card. Could a more dynamic ETA better reflect real-world delays beyond a Dasher's control?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's a great idea. I would say, in general, we are always looking to improve anything that we roll out. Ratings are no exception, and on-time rate in particular is definitely something that we are in the process of continuing to get right before we roll it out everywhere. I think what you just mentioned is one example of the many things that we are working through as we're trying to make it better. I think maybe to highlight, we're trying to improve both the fairness and the accuracy of on-time rate so that Dashers are running into less instances where they're getting dinged for something that's outside of their control. And so we're working this from a couple of different angles. The first is we want to make sure that upfront on the offer, we are setting more realistic expectations, right? Right now, there are times when the traffic we know is going to be really intense, or we know there's really bad weather, or we know certain things about a merchant are very likely going to contribute this thing to take a longer time. We need to be doing everything that we can to incorporate that into the expectation that we set up front. Otherwise, if we don't, we're introducing a ton of stress onto our Dashers, which just is not a situation that we want. So we're doing a bunch of work there to set better expectations. But on the flip side, we're never going to get that perfect, right? There will always be things that we couldn't have predicted. A parade, like out of nowhere hailstorm, right? It could be any number of things that Dashers are genuinely trying to do their best to manage, but it might cause them to be late, and they truly were not at fault. And so there are additional things that we're trying to do on the back end. First is, incorporating the new information that we have on a given delivery. Hey, we realized that this weather actually caused slowness everywhere. Or, oh, all of the Dashers are having to take a detour. Clearly something's going on here. And we want to feed that into auto excusals. So more instances that might have been deemed late are excused from the Dasher. We're not holding them accountable. We also want to make it really, really easy for Dashers to give us tighter feedback loops when we may have gotten it wrong. So, we have a dispute flow that can allow for Dashers to dispute a particular late order. We want to make it easier, and we want to make it more robust so we can collect more information, not just so that can help that Dasher, but also improve the system overall. So dynamic ETAs, right? Like that's just one part of the many tools that we are trying to deploy to make this thing better.
I appreciate that. And listen, folks, if you've ever seen something change from DoorDash, and I heard this in the breakout sessions today with your team and Tony and whatnot, the rest of the leadership team, If you've seen things change, it's because of that feedback. So please post that feedback, put comments in there. Tell me things that might not be working because I see it. See things changing. Overall Dasher rating and the like here. So I appreciate that. So question number 2, and kind of going along with wait times here. Merchant wait times continue to be one of the biggest frustrations for Dashers when you're doing the pickup, right? I often recommend the, tell us what's causing your wait, button there. So can you explain what happens when a Dasher taps that option and how that data helps DoorDash address merchant-related delays?
Yeah, the merchant wait problem is a really tricky one. And I would say, like, candidly, we still have a long way to go in making that perfect. We look to get information from many different places to have a better understanding of what's really happening on the ground. I think Dashers, when they get to a merchant and they give us that input, that is one important piece of information, but it's definitely not the only piece of information that we can use to understand what's going on. There are other areas that we're actually investing a lot in, more on the merchant side, to get really strong, high confidence reads on when an order is ready. So think, a merchant has a scale where they're weighing their orders. When they put that thing on the scale, we know that that order is ready. And if that merchant has a scale and that order hasn't been placed on the scale, it's probably not ready. So in those instances, that is probably a more reliable piece of information for us than potentially a Dasher who's just telling us, hey, it's still not ready. Any information is helpful, right? But what we want is, more, basically the more data, the better. As we're getting more of that data, we can, again, not only make sure that Dashers are not penalized, but we can also give that feedback to merchants to help encourage more timely behavior from them as well.
It makes a lot of sense. And it goes back to your point of the automatic excusals. It goes back to the feedback loops. So, do what you can, I'd say, on the Dasher front. Tap that button, say, hey, tell us what's happening. But you said on the merchant front with that new smart scale that we've talked about that just released as well, that's something really that's going to add more feedback loop. So last question here, tips. Dasher tips, very important. Tips are essential to Dashers. They reward great service and professionalism. Some competitors, I love this question, have added tip protections or live iOS alerts just encouraging customers to tip here. Would DoorDash consider implementing a similar tip guarantee? So if the tip was reduced or, let's say, put down to 0, and or any kind of real-time tipping prompts, let's say.
Yeah, totally heard. Tips are super important. Everyone wants to make sure that their tips are protected. Totally hear you there. First, I will say, we do have tip protections in place. If you see an initial offer amount and you complete that delivery, you will never get paid less than that initial offer amount. Even if a customer decides, hey, I actually want to pull back my tips, DoorDash is always going to honor the tip. So first and foremost, I don't think that that's what everyone can say, but that's something that I feel super proud and strongly about, that DoorDash will continue to stand behind. So that's maybe one tip guarantee, if you will. But I think second, tipping is really interesting because a lot of consumers can feel differently about tipping, have different relationships with tipping. What we want to do is make sure that we are set up to enable a consumer to tip whenever, wherever, however often they want to. And so obviously at checkout, we have always allowed for tipping at checkout. But what we have done over the last couple of years is we have also enabled the ability to add a tip after checkout at any time up to 30 days after a delivery is complete. Certain customers might say, hey, I want to wait until this thing gets fulfilled before I can, feel good adding a tip. Other customers will tip a little bit at checkout, will see that a Dasher is going above and beyond, and then we'll add to it. Again, we want to make sure that we are set up to transfer whatever tip that any customer wants to give at any time over to a Dasher, which I'm proud to say we do today. We have certain notifications that will try to encourage tipping also. In general, super open to additional ideas if we have more ways we think we could drive it. Again, feedback's a gift, and I'll definitely take into consideration any ideas you have.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And this is one of those kind of feedback metrics right here. Bringing in the first ever Dasher roundtable. And listen, your feedback is another one of those metrics that we, and I'm sure the Dasher team, the DoorDash team here at large, wants to take note of to improve the platform. So, Kyle, I appreciate your time.
Great chat.
I know you got places to be,
Yeah,
but
thank you so much.
It's been great. And let us know, folks, really, because I've heard from the team here that they want to make changes. They want to make improvements here. So let me know what you think should be coming new, or even like iterations of current programs down below in the comments. And now I have another, guest, even though I'm the guest here at the home office, but a guest for the channel here. So we have Colin on the team. Just tell us a little bit about, your role here at DoorDash and introduce yourself to the audience.
For sure. I'm Colin. I work on logistics at DoorDash. When you open your app, you see the map, you see how busy it is, you see where peak pay is. That's my team. When you get routes, taking your pickups and drop-offs, those are coming from my team as well. So we all show up to work. We try to make sure your dashers are smooth.
Very nice. And we have several kind of things we're talking about today on this Dasher or DoorDash Dasher roundtable. And I told you your segment I was kind of most excited for, talking about Dasher product and whatnot. So let's get into it here. I had a question. DoorDash is always testing and introducing new features. One of the platform's greatest strengths is the company's agility, in my opinion. I've always said that. I feel like DoorDash is agile. They're trying stuff and they're listening to Dashers, really, versus some other competitors and whatnot. We've recently seen launches like flash offers, overall Dasher rating, and on-time rate. How do you determine, this is funny, I asked you this in the breakout, when a Dasher-focused product is ready for expansion into new marketplaces? And how do you decide to quickly scale it? We've seen some of these products come through. You might be thinking like, when is it my turn, or when is it coming to my marketplace?
Yeah, for sure. So we definitely pride ourselves in trying new things. When we try something new, we're usually trying it in just a few places, and we're looking at three things. We want to know, is it working? Like, is it actually doing the thing we expect? How do Dashers feel about it? And can we make the math work? And so usually we're trying that in one place, and we will be checking in on subreddits, we'll be doing interviews, we'll be now talking to folks like you to understand how it actually feels to Dashers and how it's affecting their day-to-day. And usually we try to get that right in a few places before we roll it out further. There are things that we're currently trying in a few places that we're excited about, but there are things that break along the edges, times of day it might not work, and we want to get those right before we take them everywhere.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And we've seen things that maybe you have it in your marketplace, maybe you don't, and that's my job here to kind of mine this stuff and uncover and honestly speak with you. I always say I'm one person in one marketplace. That's why I need to hear from you here. So I guess just real quickly, tell us about what you're excited for, like for Dasher specifically, because you're over a lot of this. What's coming, or even just recently launched, that you're excited for Dashers?
Yeah, so a big thing we're working on next year, and this is the thing I'm most excited about out of everything we're doing, is trying to keep our best Dashers really busy. Earlier today, we talked about some of our work on wait lists, and that's all about making sure in markets cities, places where we have enough Dashers, we're not having a ton of new Dashers get on the road. We're doing a lot more work like that going into next year, and it is all about, if you are someone who gets out and delivers and takes care of your customers, we want to make sure you are always busy and always earning. You get one offer after another after another. It's going to take us a little while to get this all right, but that's the thing we're working on that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And there's a lot of things coming down the pipeline, things that just launched. I mean, we've talked about a lot of it today, the flash offers, the overall Dasher rating, and a whole lot more. So I think if you're thinking about dashing, or if you've been dashing, and like Colin just said, I mean, it's rewarding some of the busiest Dashers, and that's fantastic. So we'll have to see how those programs come along. A lot of fun today. A lot of fun today. I appreciate it. You being here answering the question. So thanks so much.
This is great.
I appreciate Colin and Kyle giving me the opportunity for this exclusive one-on-one interview. Frankly, now it's time for you and I to discuss the takeaways from this video. What do you think? And honestly, I mean, as DoorDash product managers, as Steph, of course it's going to be the most positive and bullish stance on all of these features, the tips, the expansion, everything here, the wait time, all of that. Here's what I'd say to actually measure if we see real takeaways, right? How do we measure if these things are actually acted upon here? I would say in the next 6 months, I am hoping that we see a concrete update to on-time rates. 6 months. I'd say take a couple of quarters here, work on it internally. They're gonna have to beta test it. They're gonna have to test it in different smaller marketplaces. And then we might hear maybe like a phase 1 rollout. So I'd like to see an initial, probably smaller, phase 1 rollout of the updated on-time rates by the middle of next year. You saw the tip protection thing really did surprise me, and I'm still thinking about it, and I've read your comments, and I understand it's not as easy, right? I mean, if you disagree with this, let me know. But it's seemingly not as easy to reduce a customer tip on DoorDash as it is on Uber. There's a lot more fluidity there for the customer to change the tip, not so much on DoorDash, but apparently if a customer would reach out to support or something, that you'll always get the guaranteed pay. It's just like DoorDash never really made it a big feature because it's never been as big of an issue. And then the expansion of products, either current stuff or new features that they're beta testing, or just completely brand new features that they're working on that they haven't told us about yet. So like Colin mentioned here, there's a lot of indicators to tell the company when it's time to expand, and different marketplaces react differently to different features, flash offers, all that stuff. But I would like to see pretty much a nationwide rollout of flash offers. And I think even now at the time of filming this, we might be getting close to that anyway, which is a good thing. So getting flash offers rolled out, I'd say nationwide by 3 months, like Q1 for flash offers. I would say the Pro Shopper original item found, item protection, again, that should be already rolling out. And if not nationwide, I'd also lump that into Q1. But here's another test for DoorDash, specifically about completely new features. Whether this be a brand new Dasher task, a non-delivery opportunity. I just thought about this. What about Dash Link? Because I know not everyone has Dash Link. And then not everyone has overall Dasher rating, because they're fixing on-time rate as well. So I would say expand Dash Link more, Q1, okay, fine, maybe into Q2, but Q2 again, fix on-time rates, and then by Q2, start to expand overall Dasher rating, the point system with the new and improved and obviously more fair on-time rate. So that's what I tell DoorDash. You have some goals for Q1, you have some goals for Q2 that are some longer stretch goals, on-time rates, etc. But that is how we're gonna take this, what the DoorDash team says versus what they actually do into next year. And I'll tell you this, I do think it's gonna happen. I think it will happen. They're working on this. They've been very helpful, and they're telling us exactly what kind of the trajectory is here. But you need to put your feedback down below because nothing is perfect. I hear concerns about base pay, about stuff like that, bonus pay. So let us know so we can keep funneling this over to DoorDash and keep improving the Dasher program for you and I.